Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn more about the DepEd's Learning Continuity Plan. So all our discussions today will be on the guidelines provided by DepEd Order 12 series of 2020. So this is a detailed discussion and we will be giving out a PowerPoint presentation to all of you that are watching right now. All you have to do is to finish the video so that you'll be able to know how to properly present the PowerPoint presentation, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The link for the request for the PowerPoint presentation is found in the video description. And also, I'll be sharing it in the last part of the video, so go ahead and finish this video. Today, we're going to have a detailed discussion. First, the principles of the Learning Continuity Plan. This will be followed by the basic features of the Learning Continuity Plan. And we'll also have a detailed discussion of the most essential learning competencies, or also called as the MELC. And we will also have a detailed discussion of the learning modalities. This will be followed by a discussion of the basis for choosing your modalities. So are you ready for this? Let's go ahead. Alright, so what is the rationale of the DepEd's Learning Continuity Plan? So the purpose of which is to provide clear guidance to units, schools, and communities and learning centers amidst the pandemic. So the Learning Continuity Plan will help engage the internal and external stakeholders for inputs in the delivery strategy and operational direction that ensures health, safety, and well-being of the learners, teachers, and personnel in the department. So how do we define the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, also known as the BELCP? So actually, it is a package of education interventions that will respond to the basic education challenges brought about by the COVID-19. So what are the principles adapted behind the current BELCP? So these are the principles. First of all, the number one principle is to protect the health and safety of the learners, teachers, and personnel. So safety for our teachers is the primary priority. And not only that, also our learners and the teaching personnel. And the second principle is to ensure the continuity of learning. So first of all, we ensure continuity of learning by doing curricular adjustments. So as you can see later on, there are curricular adjustments being done by DepEd so that we will be able to adapt to the current pandemic and the current challenges that we're currently facing right now. And there is also an alignment of learning materials. And number three is the deployment of multiple learning modalities. So these are options that students can choose from in order for them to have access to education despite the current pandemic that we're having right now. The fourth one is through training of teachers, leaders, and parents. Since this is something new, all our teachers, even the learners, even our parents have to adjust. And I think all of us might have noticed that there is quite an uproar regarding the new modalities that we'll be having, simply because this is something new, and that is expected because we are trying to change the status quo as of the moment in order for us to adjust to the new normal. Alright, so another one is to facilitate the safe return of teaching and non-teaching personnel to workplaces. So as we all know, there is still a high level of incidence of transmission of the COVID-19. So we are still hopeful that someday we'll be able to return. But the BELCP will somehow... Right, so another principle is to facilitate the safe return of teaching and non-teaching personnel to workplaces. Hopefully someday we can, safely return to our workplaces back to normal. But since there's still a high level of transmission of the virus, maybe perhaps this may take time, but we are still hopeful. So be sensitive to equity considerations and concerns and endeavor to address them best that we can. So again, be sensitive to equity considerations and concerns and endeavors to address them best that we can. Now, what does this mean? Now, we all know that, using the modalities, we need to adjust based on the context of our learners. So DepEd, having this as one of their major principles, is here to adjust and to make sure that those who could afford the internet connection, those who can afford the gadget, and those who cannot, there will be a high level of equity between these two groups, since we want education to be accessible to all learners, not just to the learners who can afford internet connection. And another principle is to link and bridge the basic education learning continuity plan to DepEd's pivot to quality and future education. Now, as we all know, having online classes, blended learning, these are innovations that has been there for quite a long time. And DepEd is trying to see this as an opportunity to develop certain level of skills among our teachers and our learners to open up for this kind of strategies. So this could be a challenge, but this could also be an opportunity for us to improve the quality of education and to raise the bar of quality of education here in our country. So the adoption of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan as the overall framework that will govern the school year 2020-2021 unless repealed, amended, or rescinded. So basically, the BELCP will be the overall framework that will govern our school year 2020 and 2021 unless there will be major changes, issued using DepEd orders. Alright, so one of the major changes that we can really see is the adoption of the most essential learning competencies, also known as the MELC. So what is the purpose of the MELC? So basically, MELC is designed to ease the requirements of the curriculum. And later on, we will find out that this has been actually a plan of DepEd for quite a long time, even 2 years ago. But this has been put into fruition because of the dire need of the situation. Alright, and it will be delivered in multiple modalities and platforms, which we will also have a detailed discussion later on. So basically, the DepEd Order created a Learning Resource and Platform Committee. So what is the purpose of this Learning Resource and Platform Committee? In this DepEd Order, this committee was created in order to ensure the necessary platforms or technologies are made available come August 24, 2020. So the opening of classes for this school year is on August 24, and this DepEd Order, as issued by our Secretary of Education, has placed into task all the committees that will actually do and create the learning resources that will be used for the opening of classes. Alright, so this is one of the very important feature of the DepEd Order. Section 14 of this DepEd Order says there will be no face-to-face classes until it is safe. So this is in support to the pronouncement of our President that there will be no face-to-face interaction until it is safe. Alright, so another important feature is the operationalization of all the BELCP components. This is important because it says here that all our efforts should actually align with our Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. So first of all, research should be aligned with the BELCP as well as the monitoring and evaluation framework. So very important also is that the central office trends, regional offices, the division offices should align their plans to the BELCP. So there should be alignment of their own continuity plan with the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. Regional offices will decide on the modalities based on the context of their jurisdiction. So regional offices are given the authority to decide on the modalities based on the current scenario, based on the capacity of their learners, and based on the situation in the respective regions. So it has been ordered also that regional offices should submit to the Secretary their contextualized learning continuity plan. Alright, so what are the learning strategies and modalities being implemented under the learning continuity plan of DepEd. So first of all, there has been a streamlining of the K-12 curriculum into the most essential competencies. So if you try to look at the table, there is high percentage of learning competencies removed. Let's say, for example, for kindergarten, 73% of the learning competencies were removed. So the percentage of the MLCs is 27%. So let me just, share to you the highlights of this table. We can see here that the highest number of competencies being removed is in English. In fact, 93% of the competencies were removed and only 7% remain. Right. So we can further see this one in the table here, the next table. We can see it here in the table. We have English followed by the mother tongue. There are a lot of competencies taken out, right? So we can see that the competencies now are reduced to its gist. So only the most important competencies are included. And we will discuss what were the bases for choosing these competencies. Right. So the most essential learning competencies allow the teachers and learners to have sufficient time for mastery. So the point of reducing the learning competencies is really for learners and teachers to have time to master the competencies more. However, this is something new that we need to know more about the MELC. The MELC is not a response to the pandemic, but the accelerated result of the order of the Secretary to review the curriculum 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, our beloved Secretary, Madam Briones, actually ordered for the discongestion of the curriculum. And since we are currently facing a pandemic right now, there is a high need for us to implement a more streamlined curriculum which will help and give and provide learners and our teachers time for mastery. So this has just been accelerated and we are happy that we already have this one, and hopefully this will be well integrated in the curriculum later on as our K-12 curriculum is being reviewed. So what are the characteristics of the MELCs? So it is aligned with the national standards or frameworks such as, for example, holistic Filipino learners with 21st century skills. So they connect the content to higher concepts across content areas. They are also applicable to real life situations. They are important to the students to acquire even if the student drops out from school. So we will provide more details regarding this one because all these MELCs are actually skill-based, and these skills are not limited to the application of the unit. And later on, we will realize that this has an impact to the life of the learner. So another important characteristic is they cannot be expected to be ordinarily learned by students if not taught in school. So a good word to describe the MELC is endurance because it is expected to stay with the student even after the unit is done. As I've mentioned a while ago, example of these skills developed in MELC include research skills, reading comprehension, writing, map reading, and etc. So it is hoped that implementers will contextualize the MELC based on the context of our learners. Even though this is already a decongested, our implementers, our teachers, hopefully can contextualize it based on the context of the respective locality. So there shall be a follow-up issuance soon to be released in relation to the ongoing broader K-12 curriculum review. So as I've mentioned a while ago, this has been a response to the order of the Secretary to decongest the curriculum. However, we should take note that there is a K-12 curriculum review being done. So later on, hopefully, this will be integrated to our curriculum and we will have a real decongested curriculum somehow that we will be implementing in our respective schools even after the pandemic. Right. So what will be our learning delivery modalities? So first of all, the most basic is the face-to-face. But take note, it has been ordered that there will be no face-to-face implementation or instruction unless it is safe. It has been ordered by the President. And this modality should only be considered in areas with very low risk, but still should undergo proper risk assessment and should adhere to health protocols. Could only be considered for learners with disabilities and whose condition requires face-to-face instruction. but should be subjected to further discussion with DepEd. So in this modality, it is not really recommended, and unless necessary, it should be avoided. So the next one is distance learning. So it is an instruction that occurs where learner and teacher are geographically remote from each other. So basically, they are not together in one place. So there is distance between them. So there are three types of distance learning. First is the modular distance learning, the online distance learning, the TV radio based instruction. So we will discuss one by one these types of distance learning. So let us start with the modular distance learning. So this is an individualized instruction that allows learners to use self-learning modules in print or digital format. So what is the major responsibility of the teacher for this kind of modality? First, teachers take the responsibility of monitoring the progress of the learners via email, telephone, text messaging. If needed, the teacher shall do home visits to learners to do remediation or assistance. So basically, the role of the teacher is really to constantly and consistently monitor the learners. So expect that our teachers will be like call center agents if they will choose modular distance learning. If that will fit to their context, then basically our teachers will be using communication tools to communicate consistently with our learners. So there is also another requirement when you use modular distance learning. First of all, a member of the family or stakeholder in the community shall serve as a para-teacher. There should be a para-teacher that will aid and monitor the learner as they do their modular distance learning. The online distance learning features the teacher as a facilitator, engaging learners through use of various technologies accessed through internet while they are geographically remote from each other. So basically, they are still away from each other geographically, but it allows synchronous instruction, simultaneous instruction between the participants and between the learners and the teacher. But there is one requirement for this kind of modality. The learners and the teachers, both of them should have good and stable internet connection. But the problem here is not all learners can afford a good internet connection, and even some of the teachers don't have internet connection. However, the most advantageous for this modality is that it is more interactive, and compared to other types of distance learning, the responses for this kind of modality is in real time, and learning is really fast. Learning could be fast because you'll be able to use a lot of tools when you implement online distance learning. Another modality under distance learning is the TV radio based instruction. Basically, we are just converting the self-learning modules or the SLMs into a video lesson or a TV based instruction or a radio based instruction. So it is suitable, but here's the caveat here. It's only suitable for independent learners and supported by periodic supervision of parents or guardians. So the learners themselves should be responsible enough to be able to do independent learning. And challenge again will be dealing with learners not capable of independent learning. So what if the child finds it hard to really, keep track of his own learning? So this could be hard in a sense. So, we can teach the learner skills regarding this one, but this is quite a challenge. All right, so let's go to the third learning modality. It is the blended learning. So what will happen in a blended learning? It combines face-to-face with any or a mix of online distance learning, modular distance learning, or TV radio-based instruction. So way back before the pandemic, blended learning was actually a combination of face-to-face and then online learning or online distance learning. However, right now, since face-to-face is discouraged, it could be a mix of distance learning approaches mentioned a while ago. So what are these distance learning approaches? We can have modular combined with TV-based instruction. We can have the modular combined with online distance learning, or any of those three combined. So it is now called blended learning approach. So the fourth type of learning delivery modality is homeschooling. So it provides quality basic education, and it is facilitated by a qualified parent or guardian or tutor who have undergone relevant training in home-based environment. So the parent, if they are actually, they have the training for home-based instruction, they can facilitate homeschooling. However, this will be subjected to DepEd issuance later on before it will be expanded into this, because there are quite numerous challenges in its implementation. So right now we'll proceed to the factors assessed before choosing a modality. So the first one is, our discussion will actually revolve around what will be your basis in choosing a modality. So first of all is the risk severity grading, or the interagency task force policy. Well, question number one, before you decide, are teachers and learners allowed to go to school? Right, so that's a question. Is there physical distancing, and should it be practiced, and how should it be practiced? So those are major considerations. Another consideration is the school context. So what is the current health status of the teachers? So that should be considered. Readiness of the principal and supervisors to lead and manage multiple learning delivery modalities. This is quite different from the face-to-face. So our principals, supervisors should be trained in how to manage multiple learning delivery modalities. And another question is availability of learning resources and materials. Are the materials ready? Are the learning resources ready? And most of all, teachers' readiness and capacity to facilitate multiple learning delivery modalities. So are they equipped? Alright, so we also talk about learners' context. So a while ago, I've emphasized that learners' context should also be considered. So number one is capacity to complete self-directed learning resources. So given the high distance between the learners and the teachers, can the students actually complete a self-directed learning resource using modules or using TV or radio broadcast? I mean, even in face-to-face interaction, there are a lot of problems. And the thing is, in face-to-face interaction, the learner is there, the teacher is there, physically present in one room. Imagine what will happen if they have a great distance between them. So that will be quite a challenge, right? So it's very important that learners learn to be self-directed. They should be able to control themselves, and much more if they use internet. Internet is a double-edged sword. So remember that the learners are actually exposed to a lot of stimulus from the internet that is more enticing than learning itself. So there's YouTube, there's a lot of games that are available using the computer. So that will be a major challenge. And next is access to learning resources and technology. There are access to learning resources and technology. There are many students who has no capacity to get the learning resources and the technology they need to acquire a specific modality, specifically online distance learning, right? So how do we promote equity among these learners? So we need to consider that very closely. And then parental home and community support. So this is very important since there are many learners whose parents are also working. And the community, can they support the learners in terms of developing their self-directed capacity towards learning? So these are questions we need to consider. So capacity to guide learners in understanding the lesson. So can the parents do this? Can the community do this? Or qualified, right, to do this? So these are things that we need to consider in the part of the learner's context. Alright, so that ends our video for today. Again, if you like the video presentation, if you like the PowerPoint presentation that has been presented, feel free to subscribe to the channel, and in the video description, just fill in the link that is found there. The PowerPoint presentation will be automatically sent to you. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video provide you with some insights on the DepEd's Learning Continuity Plan. See you in the next video. See you in the next video.